Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLuga. Thanks so much for tuning in here Thursday, August 21st. Jacksonville Jaguars and Miami Dolphins joint practice in the books. Only doing one day of joint practices. The two teams will face off Saturday night. We're going to get into my top takeaways from this joint practice. I was not there. I'm at my home studio right now. Jokingly said, my wife, Kara, who is in Miami right now, was going to be live tweeting from Jordan DeLugo Twitter handle, but no, was not there. But I was keeping my eyes on the pulse on Twitter. There was a lot of good reporters there for the Jaguars and Dolphins. Jamal St. Cyr, John Shipley, a lot of guys on the Miami beat as well. We also heard from Liam Cohen after practice, so there's definitely some things to get into, some clear takeaways from this. Excited to get into it. Really appreciate y'all being here. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear like the Trevor MVP shirt. I think he's going to have himself a big year. Will it be MVP quality? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So, no Travis Hunter and no Tyson Campbell. That's just a note. They wanted to get Travis out there, but ultimately Liam Cohen said after practice, they didn't want to risk putting him out there and risk week 1 against Carolina. Their goal right now is Carolina. And that's the bottom line. And it's kind of the same thing with Tyson. Both of these guys, if it was a regular season game day, probably could have played, probably would have played, but it wasn't. It was preseason joint practice. Are they valuable reps? Yes. But bottom line is they need these guys healthy and ready to go week 1 against Carolina when that 60 minutes of football, that 3 hours of actual time counts. That's what they need. Week 1 in Jacksonville against Carolina Panthers, they need Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball. They need Tyson Campbell at corner. So that's the priority. That's why those guys didn't play. This was a feisty, fiery practice. The Miami Dolphins are a team that have been participating in joint practices already. They've had their fair share of struggles in joint practices already. So I think they were tired of hearing about it. I think they were tired of getting their butts kicked a little bit. And they came out ready to go. And they were very feisty. You saw a scuffle that happened between the Dolphins corners and the Jaguars receivers. You saw Jalen Wright get a little testy with Trayvon Walker. Probably not a great idea. Heard Trayvon Walker had him in a chokehold, and then Jalen Wright ended up leaving practice with a limp heading to the training facility. I don't know if it was right after that. I don't know the exact timeline, but messing with Trayvon Walker, probably not a good idea. I don't care who you are. So yeah, feisty, fiery. It was hot down there. It's Miami. It's hotter and humid, more humid than it is in Jacksonville. Humider. It is hotter and certainly more humid. But getting into my top takeaways, I got 5 top takeaways. Number 1, we will start with no starters on Saturday. Liam Cohen said after practice, you're not going to see the starters on Saturday. I talked about that last night on Club Jaguar. I felt like you go into this joint practice, you get your work done, and that's it. Wrap it up, get out of joint practice healthy, which they feel like they did, and get ready for week 1. Start game planning, start getting everybody ready for week 1 right now. Today's August 21st. The game is September 7th. So a little over 2 weeks to get ready for that football game. That's what they need to do. They need to win against the Carolina Panthers. The Jaguars have a very difficult slate. Murray's around here somewhere making some noise. The Jaguars have a very difficult slate early on in the season. Getting a win against Carolina in week 1 is paramount. We don't need to dive into that whole preview right now, but it's paramount. That's a team the Jaguars should have every ability to go toe-to-toe with and outcompete, in my opinion. One of the big reasons they should be able to outcompete them is my takeaway number 2 from this one. And it does not matter who you are getting your information from. Brian Thomas Jr. Where is Murray? I hear her. I don't see her. Sorry. Brian Thomas Jr. when he gets into these joint practice settings, when he gets into game settings, he picks it up a notch. He kicks it up, and he was the story from the day. It sounded like, basically, Cameron Wolf was tweeting about it. Miami Dolphins reporters tweeting about it. Jaguars reporters, everybody was tweeting about Brian Thomas Jr. having a really big day. And this is just to say, look, he's still BTJ. He's still the guy who dominated last year. He's still a guy who, in regular practices, needs to figure out a way to ramp it up, right? Get better in the regular practices, but in joint practices, money. In games, money. And Liam Cohen's talked to him about it. Like, if you could dominate practice the way you do games, that can really take you to a whole nother level that you are looking to get to, and being like legitimately one of the top receivers in this league. But BTJ, as he did last year against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, shined against the Miami Dolphins in joint practices. So not a big surprise, but maybe a sigh of relief from all the people in the comment section that are absolutely worrying and panicking about Brian Thomas Jr. No need to panic. All right. Up next is the defensive fronts. I think dominated in this joint practice. It sounds like the Dolphins, whether it was Zach Sealer or Benito Jones or Bradley Chubb, really kind of had their way a little bit with the Jaguars. And it does sound like it was more the interior stuff than it was on the edges. But Zach Sealer, a really good football player. The Dolphins have a talented front, and they do a really good job with their coverage disguising, which gets me to my next takeaway, which is the Jaguars offense needed this practice. They needed this experience because they have not gone against a starting defense yet outside of their own, which you go against your defense every day. The Jaguars defense goes against their offense every day. That gets not stale, but it isn't the same challenge as it is practicing against another number one defense who's actually throwing some things at you. And I don't think the Dolphins threw the whole playbook at them, but I do think that one of their core principles in coverage in Miami, and again, their defensive coordinator came over from Baltimore, they're disguising coverage. You move pre-snap, you have motion, and it looks like they're in zone, and then they switch it to man. Or it looks like they're in man, and then they switch it to zone. And so that led to a couple interceptions today. Trevor was picked off twice. It is what it is. First time he's had 2 interceptions in a practice this year. You don't want to see that, but I think they needed to see that because, again, having that type of experience against a starting defense is critical before you get into week 1. Critical. And the Jags starting defense is no slouches either. Like, they've gotten their hands on the football a good amount. They've made plays. They disguise things too at times. They have some nice games up front in practice. But this was a different test. And ultimately, the Jaguars need to grow from it. It wasn't very good overall. It was sloppy. Again, the interior of the offensive line struggled at times. The quarterbacks threw a couple interceptions. There was some timing that was off. But I think that this is something they needed. Finally, final point, Bashal Tutin having a really good practice, and I think he's done a really good job. Liam Cohen said after practice that Tutin had a much better practice today than he did yesterday. I think that there's some things as a rookie that the coaches are still looking for assignment-wise that Tutin hasn't quite executed perfectly throughout camp, but he had a really good practice today, according to everyone there and according to Liam Cohen. So that was good to hear. There was one play where Jamal tweeted out that he kept those legs churning and pushed forward for extra yards, which is something we have seen routinely from Bashal Tutin, not only in practice, but in the games. In both games, he's had a play where he was able to keep his legs churning and pick up extra yards. There was a play where he was able to hit the edge. There was another play where, again, this is all from Jamal, where Hunter Long was able to pick up a big key block and spring Tutin a little bit. So I love hearing Tutin playing well because I really liked him in the draft. He still hasn't put the ball on the ground in training camp. knock on wood. He'll probably play on Saturday, but you're seeing a guy, in my opinion, kind of continue to elevate. They feel good about Bigsby. They feel good about ETN. They feel good about LeQuint Allen and pass pro. Bashal Tutin is coming along, and I think he's eventually going to own this backfield, whether it's in 2025 later on or in 2026. I think it will be his backfield eventually, and he's got the talent to really shine in that role if he can continue to not put the ball on the ground and grow within the offense. So that's exciting. And again, as I said, no starters Saturday night. So the game preview is going to be all about backup position battles, all that good stuff. We'll get that out for you tomorrow. But overall, challenging day in the heat in Miami for this Jacksonville Jaguars football team. I think, again, defensive fronts had a big day against the offensive lines. You want the Jags offensive line to perform at a better clip. I think that this was a good test for them, a good, hopefully, practice to grow from. And then Brian Thomas Jr. having himself a day. You'll love to see that. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.